I did the math, and it turns out I have officially spent over 1,000 hours working on this single video game. After all that time, I've got a game that actually works, a live Steam page, and real plans to release the game this coming summer. But when I started this project back in May 2024, I had zero game dev experience, no experience coding in C#, and honestly, no business trying to make a full RPG by myself. If you're thinking about making a game, or you're just curious what 1,000 hours of solo development actually looks like, I want to walk you through how Back on Your Feet went from a random idea in my head to the game I'm releasing this coming summer. It all started back in May of 2024. I had zero game dev experience besides a high school coding class, but I had big dreams of designing and making my own video game. I picked Unity as my game engine because, well, it was the only game engine I knew the name of. At this time, I was also obsessed with boxing, watching Rocky, binging Hajime no Ippo, so then I decided I'm going to make a 2D top-down pixel art boxing RPG for my first game. With the game's idea decided, the first hurdle I decided to try and jump was the art. I grabbed a program called Sprite on Steam for $20 expecting to struggle, but something odd happened. The initial art I was making looked pretty good. I don't know if I'm just goated or if pixel art is easier than it looks, but it felt natural immediately. Within a week, I cranked out the scene backgrounds and sprite sheet you're seeing on screen now. However, this early success was dangerous because the art looked good. I felt like I was making huge progress. I even had a name for the game, Back on Your Feet, and I started building the intro animations, cutscenes, and the story. I was having a blast. I built the narrative all the way up to the very first fight scene, and then I hit a wall. Obviously, I didn't literally hit a wall, but I had avoided the actual gameplay, the combat, for as long as possible. And when I finally sat down to code the first fight, I realized I had no clue what I was doing. There were no tutorials for the specific type of combat I wanted, and thus began this painful game of cat and mouse. I'd write code, test it, it would break, I'd fix it, and something else would break. I spent months trying to get the player and enemy scripts to talk to each other. Eventually I got something playable, but it was clunky. It wasn't fun. And right as I was struggling with this, life happened. I moved into my dorm for my first year of college. And since college was new, exciting, and important to me, game dev took a back seat. I went from working every day to working whenever I felt like it, which usually meant going weeks without touching the game's development. The only bright spot of that first year was winter break. I discovered Unity's Timelight feature. I got pretty good at using it to make cutscenes, and I finally built Back on Your Feet's Steam page. While we're on the topic of Back on Your Feet's Steam page, you should head over there and wishlist Back on Your Feet on Steam. Come on, it's free, it's easy, it's a couple clicks away. It'll make that little number go up and make me feel good. Anyway, getting the page live felt like a huge win, but deep down I knew the core game, the combat, was still barely functional. Fast forward to summer break, I had this realization. I love making video games, and I have a million ideas for new games. But I couldn't just let Back on Your Feet go. It was better than a good idea. It was a great idea, and lots of the game was already developed. I had to finish it before I allowed myself to start any big new project. But I did participate in a couple of small game jams to take a break from working on Back on Your Feet. You can check out the first video on my channel to see what happened there. Once that was out of my system though, I decided it was finally time to take a look at the combat code again. It was intimidating, but I tore it down and with a lot of effort built a version 2. It was cleaner, it wasn't perfect, but it was definitely better. I finished the game's second fight scene reusing a lot of the code from the first, and things were starting to look up. Then I got distracted again. My friends and I launched a startup going into the school year, and for a while that consumed everything. The game sat on my hard drive, gathering dust. But then came this current winter break. The startup work had slowed down, and I was itching to create again. I opened Unity, looked at my 1,000-hour project, and decided, it's time to lock in. This last stretch has, no joke, probably been the most productive time of my life. First, I fixed the combat for real this time. I polished it until there were no bugs, and it finally feels like the game I imagined back in May of 2024. My art workflow has completely changed. Scenes that used to take me a whole day now take 30 minutes. But the biggest improvement was this. I finished the entire story script. What this means is I now have a concrete plan of how I want each part of the game to look and function for all the scenes I haven't developed. Having a clear view of the finished product really makes me think I'm going to publish this thing to Steam by the start of summer. So, what did 1,000 hours teach me? If you're a solo dev, I have 3 takeaways that might save you a few hundred hours of headache. Number 1, do not do what I did. Do not make the pretty art and the cool intro before you make the game fun. Focus on the core mechanics first. Number 2, I used to try and do everything at once. Now I separate my tasks. I have a document where I write all the dialogue. I have a to-do list just for the art assets. I prep all the ingredients like the art, the scripts, the dialogue separately. And then when I open Unity, I'm just throwing them all into a pot to cook, and it's so much faster. And finally, it is almost impossible to burn out if you rotate your tasks. Game dev is coding, writing, art, music, and design. If I'm sick of pixel art, I'll write some dialogue. If I'm sick of writing, I'll code some. If I'm sick of coding, I'll make some music. When you're a solo dev, you're responsible for every aspect of the game. Use that to your advantage. And hey, don't forget to play your game once in a while. Sit back and look at what you made. It's pretty cool to see all of that work staring back at you. Once again, if you want to support the development of Back on Your Feet, wishlisting it on Steam is the best way to help. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more devlogs. Thanks so much for watching.